Welcome to episode 12 of The Racer's Edge in association with F1 Racing Magazine, coming to you in the aftermath of yet another dramatic Grand Prix. Sensational, wonderful win for Nico Rosberg, exactly 30 years to the day that his father won the Monaco Grand Prix, 1983 in the Williams. Who could forget that? Caio Keke Rosberg starting on slicks and getting through those first few laps and winning the race. Well, winning the race, putting his stamp of authority on Monaco in a way that very few who saw that have ever forgotten. And Nico following beautifully in his father's footsteps. So congratulations to him, to everybody at Mercedes Grand Prix. But there's another side to that Mercedes story from Monaco, and that involves tyres. And once again, I'm very lucky to have in the studio with me the editor of F1 Racing, who's also down at Monaco, Anthony Rowlinson, looking very dapper in your preppy shirt and pullover for a change, Anthony.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Anthony, I don't know anyone that knew about that test that Mercedes did with the Pirellis after Barcelona until the Saturday night of Monaco.
Yeah.
Well, apart from those who took part, of course.
Well,
what's your take on when everybody found out about it?
Well, it's definitely that Saturday night, Sunday morning period. It appeared to have emerged from the driver's briefing when either Lewis or Nico, I'm not sure who, blabbed, let it out, did whatever they did, or was asked a question that let slip that the test had happened. And from what I gather, Seb Vettel hot-footed it back to the Red Bull energy station, said to Christian, these guys have been testing, and from there it blew up.
Blew up being the operative word. Mm-hmm. I think already a number of questions need to be asked. Why was it so secret for a start? And beyond that, how did they keep it so secret? That's the other thing. I mean, we know Ferrari tested after Bahrain with their 2011 car, but it was like, but this was amazing. They didn't go home. They stayed there after Spain. Nobody knew. And both Nico and Lewis drove. Yeah,
I mean, you ask questions that unfortunately I can't answer. I can't imagine.
They're rhetorical. They're purely rhetorical. I think everybody's asking these questions. That's the point.
How it was kept secret. The one thing I think possibly that did happen was they didn't test immediately after the race. There was a 3-day gap. So there was a sort of break before the car started running again. So the 2 and 2 wouldn't have necessarily been put together that's what Mercedes were doing. But it was definitely held in radio silence, as it were.
And we are speaking rhetorically in so many ways because there are so many unanswered questions, and none of these questions now I think are going to get answered until it goes all the way now to FIA legality. But if we just take the first paragraph of the statement put out by the FIA at Monaco on the 26th, at the beginning of May, said the FIA, we were asked by Pirelli if it was possible for it to carry out some tyre development testing with a team using a current car. Within the contract Pirelli has with the FIA as single supplier, there is provision for them to carry out up to 1,000 kilometres of testing with any team, providing every team is offered the opportunity to do so. Now, I've done a bit of a phone around today and yesterday amongst various team spokesmen, and they've all said, well, that's news to us. We didn't know, and that's why we weren't at Barcelona, we didn't know that you could test with a 2013 car. And the implication is that when the invitation came from Pirelli, they all assumed it was to run a 2011 car. Yeah. And so that opening paragraph is definitely curious, to say the least. Well, I guess the FIA would argue, well, it's a contract we have with Pirelli, so why would the teams know the detail of that contract anyway? But if it involves the legality of running a 13 car in a test mid-season, then why wouldn't they know about it? That's the bizarre thing.
It's very strange, and I think the key line in that paragraph is the words where it says all the other teams being offered the opportunity to do so. That doesn't appear to have happened. That is where Red Bull and Ferrari and other teams are now turning the heat up on Mercedes, because they say, well, we weren't invited to do this test, how come you were? And actually, if you were, why didn't you tell us anyway? So it is a difficult situation Mercedes are in. There's no doubting that.
And McLaren, you can add to that, because I'm pretty sure they didn't know either that this was happening, or indeed that they were even offered the opportunity to go there. It's interesting you mentioned Mercedes, because my reaction would be it would be Pirelli actually that are in trouble, because it was a Pirelli test, and Mercedes, I would assume, are going to say, well, it wasn't up to us to invite the other teams, it was up to Pirelli, it was a Pirelli test, we just came along and we provided the cars that we were going to provide, the drivers, etc. And that FIA statement very clearly, I think, says that the onus was on Pirelli to inform all of the teams.
Well, that's a very relevant point, but one of the arguments that's being made against Mercedes at the moment is that they, as a team, are in breach of the sporting regulations by having tested. So yes, obviously Pirelli, as you say, would appear to be in some difficulty, but I think Mercedes will be attacked as well for breach of the sporting regulations.
Yes, although that first paragraph by the FIA, there is a contract which allows them to test for 1,000 kilometres, actually in reality should override the sporting regulation, albeit the grey area around whether it's a 2013 car or not. So that's a big issue. I think an even bigger issue, I don't know what you think about this, is the overall political situation, because one could imagine, well, you can imagine in the days of Max Mosley, Max probably relishing this situation, maybe disqualifying or not allowing Mercedes to compete in, I mean, he wouldn't do it in Canada, he'd do it in Britain to hurt Lewis, and then he'd do it in Germany to hurt Mercedes, wouldn't he? I don't think it'll come to that, but I can see the FIA getting very tough with Pirelli, and I think that could have a lot of medium to long-term repercussions for the sport, because Pirelli are not having a good run at the moment. If something bad happens now, they get a big fine or something like that, heaven forbid, then you can see them pulling out of the sport at the end of the year. Their contract is up for renewal at the end of this year.
There's going to be a point at which it becomes a bit too difficult. It's all just a bit too negative for Pirelli. I mean, Pirelli are a massive company. They don't need Formula One to survive. I mean, in a way, although they're getting paid and they have marketing benefits, they're doing F1 a favour by being the sole tyre supplier, because nobody else was queuing up to supply tyres when Bridgestone pulled out. And if it does all become just a bit too awkward every single week, race in, race out, then, you know, why would they stay?
A point well made, and we've made that point, I think, hopefully in other times on the show, and the reality is it doesn't really matter how bad the tyres are. They are the tyre supplier. Formula One has taken them in. They do a great job in every other dimension in terms of promotion of the sport and the money they spend on advertising. And they've come in on the understanding that Formula One would come up with regulations that would work with them, and it behoves the sport not to trash them too much. I guess everything would be okay if there was another tyre supplier out there with a huge budget, prepared to come into Formula One straight away and replace Pirelli, and then everybody could be reasonably confident. And I'm sure Jean Todt probably believes that he can get Michelin to come back in with his tyres and the nationality and everything else.
They're just back to Formula E, haven't they? Michelin are involved in Formula E.
And they're in World Series by Renault. You know, they do a lot of stuff, but they were not treated well by Formula One. And maybe there's a new management team there, and maybe they're prepared to say, well, that was the past, we're coming in. But there was certainly a lot of bad blood between Michelin and Formula One at the end of 06, and it'll take a while still, I think, for that to go away. When they were accused of cheating, and in addition to that, of course, they were hung out to dry at Indianapolis in 05.
That was nasty.
So there are a number of aspects to this, and I think the other political thing is that if you like, Jean Todt of the FIA might well be leaning towards Michelin, if possible, to get them back in. Equally, Pirelli are very much a side of the commercial, on the commercial side of Formula One. They buy a lot of signage. We see them in evidence all over the place. Something could never be said when Michelin was in Formula One relative to Bridgestone. And so you can see that political prize fight building up as well. So who knows where this is going to end. Let's hope it doesn't tarnish the Mercedes Nico Rosberg win at Monte Carlo. What's your thought about that?
Well, my feeling is that Mercedes were fancied for pole and a strong result before that Spanish Grand Prix. People have been saying from about the second race of the season, actually, if Mercedes can stick it on pole, control the race, run it as slowly as possible, make their tyres last, they should be good for a win anyway. And let's face it, that one test at Barcelona I don't think would have done enough to fix the car for Monaco. It might have done stuff that's useful later in the year, but I think that car would have been pretty quick at Monaco anyway. And actually, they were a little bit unlucky not to get a 1-2. And I agree with you. I really hope this doesn't take away from Nico's win, because I was really pleased for him that he won. I was really pleased for Mercedes that they won, because it spiced up the season. I think it was just all round a good result. You know, the fastest guy of the weekend won the race on merit, and that's really what you want from the sport, isn't it? Here's
the thought, though. On the assumption that nothing happens dramatically legally before the Canadian Grand Prix, and Mercedes find themselves in Montreal where they're in position not only to be on the pole, but to get their tyres to work really well, and they can win the race. Are they going to want to win the race? Imagine the flack if they start to win 2 in a row prior to the court case or the legality becoming solid.
It's a terrible business, isn't it, Formula One? Things are never. You can never just have a win. You can never just like have a straightforward, simple win, and people be happy for someone else to win. But I mean, that's the nature of the sport, isn't it? It's so intensely competitive in every respect.
Well, it is, and It's sad in a way that we're talking about this as the top of the show, because Nico's win was stunning, and there were many other aspects to Monte Carlo, but inevitably it is going to be the big talking point, because it could affect the results, and it certainly could affect what's going to happen in the next few months at Mercedes. Also, interesting situation for Paddy Lowe, just about to join Mercedes in the wake of all that. You know, if somebody's got to be hung out to dry, perhaps. Naming names there, but you can imagine who might be hung out to dry at Mercedes as a result of this. And it's perfect timing for Paddy then to come in. And it's an interesting situation for Toto Wolff to have to deal with. You know, this is proper full-on nasty, backstabby Formula One politics, and he's an experienced guy, and in many ways, not just in Formula One. This will be the first sort of really difficult, problematic situation he's had to deal with, and interesting test for him on the media side, on the sporting side, on the political side. All these dimensions are suddenly going to align and give Toto some late nights, I think, for the next few weeks. Don't forget Niki Lauda either. I mean, Niki may not be the world's greatest manager of a Formula One team in terms of every department, but he's pretty sharp when it comes to detail of reading the rule book and what you can do and what you cannot do. And I'd be really interested to see Niki, if he's brought into some sort of legal tribunal, whatever's going to be. I'd love to be there when Niki's expounding the Mercedes view. That'll be a lot of fun. Don't you think he'd be saying to Toto, your problem, you deal with it? Maybe. If he's he's probably put himself in that sort of position, hasn't he? But we'll see. Great talking to you, Anne. I mean, one of the, and I'm sure I'll just quickly get your input on this, but I thought one of the drives of the day at Monaco, apart from Nico Rosberg's, was Adrian Sutil's. Partly because he shunted on Saturday morning and damaged the car, which at Casino Square too. It was quite a high-speed thing, top of the hill. Car was rebuilt, went out, did a great job in qualifying, and then just drove beautifully in the race, passed people as well. It was a really positive fifth place for Adrian Sutil. A great turnaround. Well, not a turnaround, just the result that we knew was always going to be there for him. I think it goes back to something that you alluded to in a piece you wrote for us a few weeks ago, and something that's also emerged today on the web. Is Adrian's mental strength, and how having his year out, having had a very difficult sort of personal experience, fallen out of Formula One, being a bit of a pariah, welcome back in. He's found it within himself to do that, to return to the sport in a competitive way. And Monaco is actually a sort of microcosm of what's happened to him. He had a very difficult time, got his head together, got his head down, put a really good drive in, and that's something you've got to respect in any sportsman, actually, not just a Formula One driver, but I think to have done that at Monaco is quite an achievement. Wasn't a great weekend for Ferrari at Monaco, even though Fernando Alonso previewed the weekend by saying that Red Bull domination is over. Well, he was kind of correct about that, but I think he was thinking more along the lines of the Ferrari domination is beginning. Anyway, it didn't quite happen. It was odd, really, how quick Fernando was on Thursday, and then Saturday, Sunday, never really got the tyre temperatures at their operating level. And that was something that was fairly typical of the weekend. Getting the fronts up to operating temperature without destroying the rears was basically the key to getting any sort of balance and any sort of grip level. And we saw virtually every team, and even Mercedes to some extent of the way they were managing the race, in that sort of trouble. Fernando more than most, Kimi also, we'll get onto him in a second, but not helped, of course, by Felipe Massa's big accident on Saturday morning. Now that was a Felipe Massa not really liking Monaco that well. He was actually braking earlier than he normally had into Sainte-Devote, and he caught a bump on this occasion, locked both fronts, very unusual, but symptomatic of a year in which it's so difficult to get those fronts up to temperature, which went straight into the guardrail in sixth gear. Big accident. Car was rebuilt. Qualifying was a disaster, of course, and in the race, a very similar accident. That one put down to technical failure, but of course, we don't know whether or not in some way it was related to the rebuild and the impact of the other accident. So not a good weekend at all for Felipe Massa. But for all you Ferrari fans out there, maybe this will cheer you up a little.
ragazzi, gran bel sorpasso.
Good boy, well done. Great job. Well done, mate.
Avanti, avanti, avanti.
Fantastica anche la squadra, fantastica, pit stop stupendi. So fantastic pit stop, fantastic weekend. Very well, very good.
Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari. Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari. Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari. Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari, Forza Ferrari.
One driver who was very impressive to watch at Monaco, particularly on Thursday and then on Saturday up at Casino Square, was Williams' Pastor Maldonado. A new front wing, new underbody. Car was a little bit more competitive, seemed to be a bit more pointy than of recent races, but Pastor certainly showing how quick he is on a circuit like Monaco, where there's no room for error, as we saw with Romain Grosjean, Felipe Massa. Very, very fine judgment, very precise placing of the car, and incredibly quick as well. Breathtaking to watch, actually, up at Casino. A bad Sunday for Pastor. It ended after a disappointing qualifying. It ended with that touch from Max Chilton. He went into the Tabac wall very, very hard. We spoke to Pastor, however, a few days after the race. This is what he had to say. Pastor, a disappointing end to obviously your Monaco Grand Prix, but certainly for a day and a half, almost 2 days, you looked blindingly quick and very, very impressive around Monaco. How do you feel now, a few days after the race, when you look back at that performance, not necessarily at the accident, but in general where you are now with the car?
Actually, for sure, a bit disappointed for the final result. I was expecting something more from Monaco. I saw that we had some chance to be fighting for the points or even for better position than only points, you know. Since the free practice, I've been quite competitive and even not pushing that hard, just because I know very well the track. But apart, I know very well the track because even the other drivers know very well the track, you know, maybe better than me because they are more experienced with the Formula One than me here. But I've been trying to understand and to study in this track. You know, I love the track. I love the weather in Monaco, the history of the Formula One, and I've been trying to be very focused on where to gain time, where to be fast, where to take some risks, where to be safe. I think you need many things to be reasonable quick in Monte Carlo, a part of a good car, safe car that gives you the opportunity to risk, to play with the car and to do with the car what you want. I think we've been trying even many things this weekend in terms of aerodynamic size, even mechanical size, trying to out from the problems we had in the past with the FW35, which everyone knows is caused us a couple of performance problems at the moment. But it's looking a bit better, and I was quite positive on this weekend because we tried something different in the car. I was more confident on getting the rhythm lap by lap, and the team was quite focused on this race as well. So I think we put nearly all together to be one of the quickest, as you saw in Quali 1. I think on the wet conditions, for sure, the drivers in Monaco can make the real difference in the track. And that was the worst condition you can find in Monaco, what we had in Quali 1. And yeah, I've been able to put everything together, and as you've seen, we were on pole. I take some risks in the points where I think that we can, and I be safe in the point where it's something stupid to take any big risk. That was happened during the weekend, and then the track was getting dry, and we were not with the right tires in the right moment. I think we've been quite early to the slick tires, but anyway, in the dry conditions, our car was not 100% performing for.
No, but just to recap a little bit, certainly in free practice, watching you, particularly at Casino Square, you looked absolutely on it. Very little margin for error up there, Pastor. It looked like you were, I mean, I don't believe you could drive the way you were driving unless you had a reasonable degree of confidence in the car and what it was doing and with what the front end was giving you.
Yeah, to be honest, as I mentioned before, I love this track. I try to go every lap quicker and quicker to get the confidence from the track. And I think that in this track I'm driving more with my car, try to deliver all of my talent,
Yeah.
and don't think about the technique or don't think about the corners. Just drive, just be free, and I feel very free, I'm very safe in Monaco.
To my eye, only Vettel and Rosberg were consistently that close to the guardrail on the inside, on the right hand side of the car going down the hill from Casino Square as you. Very impressive to watch. Very, very small margins. I don't know if you're aware of that when you follow other drivers.
Yeah.
Do you notice that?
Yeah, for sure. And even not only in that corner, you can see that the drivers are losing a bit even in Tabac. The drivers are losing a bit even in Rasgas.
Yeah, Rasgas too.
Leave,
we saw you, yeah.
They leave a couple of centimeters in the track that this is costing you some time at the end of the lap. And sometimes you need to even touch the barriers, and this is Monaco, and you need to find the limit on touching the barriers just to see, okay, there is the limit, I keep continuing to do the same. Otherwise, you always lost something in the track.
Pastor, at Rascasse, you just mentioned Rascasse, into Rascasse, you're very similar to Kimi there. Quite an early turn in. You're very close to the inside of the corner, coming out of the brakes, getting onto the throttle. Vettel, completely the opposite, basically braking in a straight line way to the outside of the corner, making a V in the middle of the corner, and then accelerating back across. Amazing differences between the two of you. I wonder whether maybe that's Vettel just wanting to work the front tires as hard as he could.
Yeah, Vettel normally drives in a V mode. You know, he is more a stop-and-go driver. Every time, even his car permits him to stop very late, to brake very late the car, to have not the highest minimum speed in the corner, but to position well the car to have a good exit. My style is more carrying more minimum speed to the corners, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe my exits are not the greatest one, but I'm gaining a lot of time on braking and turning, which is different styles, you know, but at the end, more or less, the same results.
Yeah. Pastor, a new front wing, new front underbody on the car. You mentioned some of the developments already. Do you see that taking some sort of momentum now to Canada, completely different sort of circuit?
Yeah, I think we on the experimental tests we done the last weekend. We understand many things in the car, what was happening in the past. I think we find a couple of solutions for one of the biggest problems we had, and we need to be optimistic, you know, and looking forward to Canada. I love that circuit. I love Canada as well. You are close to the barrier in some corners. Very late braking. The grip is changing a lot during the weekend. I love these tricky conditions, you know, and even the weather will be maybe not very hot. And this make even harder for everyone the track. I really hope to improve. I really hope to have a better and competitive car during the qualifying and a solid car during the race.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope that's the case for all the Williams fans out there. Pastor, one final point. After your very big accident, nothing to do with you, hit by Max Chilton, he's admitted he didn't see you. Everybody, I think, is beginning to love you because you get out of the car, you have a massive shunt, it wasn't your fault, and you keep this very calm composure. We don't see you throwing helmets, we don't see you getting angry. You're to be complimented on that.
Oh, thank you for that. But you know, I know how is racing in Monaco very well, and for sure it was not my fault. Let's see that Chilton doesn't see me in the outside of that corner of before Tabac, and I was surprised when he was crossing my line, but at that time I saw that the crash was in front of me. You know, I was expecting to have the crash, maybe not that big. It was quite big. The impact was shocking. I was even for a couple of seconds in the car saying, "Okay, I'm here. I'm okay." I touch my legs. I touch my arms. Okay, I'm okay. And then game over. You know. Let's think about Montreal. Let's think about the future races. And this is the end of this. So
great attitude.
I'm very realistic. I'm very honest with myself, honest with the team, and even honest with the other drivers. All of us can do any mistakes. We are not in the car to do that on purpose. You know, sometimes for sure you mistake, you are risky, you are racing, you are defending, you are racing for something. And I accept that the people do some mistakes.
Pastor, just a very quick one. Did you take your hands off the steering wheel before the impact?
Yeah. No. To be honest, no, because it was a frontal impact. So I was
Bracing.
taking in my hand the steering wheel just to break my body, you know, and it was a big impact. Still now I have some pain all around my body, but nothing very important. Just some contusions, but I will be fine for the next race.
Well, we look forward to seeing you there. Hope you'll very quickly get back to 100%. You can get into your training again. And all the best to you and the team in Canada. Thanks for talking to us, Pastor.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have to put my hand up and say that I predicted Kimi Raikkonen to win the Monaco Grand Prix. I thought Lotus would find that wonderful sweet spot we've seen on occasions in 2013, but it didn't really happen for them. Thursday for Kimi was a difficult day because Lotus, like most teams, had to run different front suspension geometry to accommodate the radius, the very tight radius of the what used to be the station hairpin. And that changed the feel of the front of the car for Kimi. They actually just fitted a different steering rack for Saturday, not a different one in terms of dimension, but a different rack to that new Monaco spec, and it felt a lot better to Kimi. So then he basically started work trying to get the temperature balance right between front and rear. Always very difficult, and he didn't quite get it. But nonetheless, it could have been a good race for him. He was just stuck in traffic. I thought it was very interesting afterwards when he did get hit from behind, or they had that contretemps with Sergio Perez, that Kimi was quoted as saying he deserves a punch in the nose or the face or whatever. And for Kimi to say that, and this is Kimi Raikkonen, we're not talking some, pussy here, this is a serious racing driver, then he was obviously pretty hot under the collar about it. So again, a little bit more about that later. I think a disappointing weekend. Also, Romain Grosjean, 2 accidents at the same corner. We know how good he is, and I don't know how many people had a look at my my attempt to describe the driving styles into La Rascasse on Thursday, just trying to take pictures of every driver in exactly the same spot so you can see how different they were. Believe me, the difference between Kimi and Romain Grosjean in the way they approached just that one relatively unimportant section of road was truly amazing. Kimi, probably a full car width to the inside, getting nothing like the same initial steering lock as Romain Grosjean, who's putting a lot of load into the car early on, and then just going through that corner absolutely on the ragged edge, and Kimi manipulating the car, teasing the throttle, doing all the things that Kimi does so beautifully. And I know it's easy to say it after the event, but when you were watching Romain then, you thought, this guy is going to have to do very well to survive 3 days of Monaco without a single mistake. And of course, we saw that. And then he got traffic in qualifying, all the pressure building up. So that was very disappointing. And I think what we saw there was Romain in France, if you like, Monaco, realizing that he needed to be the Romain of 2012 and going back basically to being the same driver. The driver we saw earlier this year, as I've said several times, the only way he's going to be more conservative is to be the driver he was earlier this year, which is just back away from his natural flair, and that makes him, half a second slower than Kimi. So he didn't want to be that way in Monte Carlo, and that was the result, sadly. Nico Rosberg, he just drove. I spent a bit of time with Alan Prost over this last Monaco weekend in Cannes at the launch of the Jackie Stewart film, and also just chatting to him in the paddock. And more, the vision of Alain particularly in the Renault Turbo, the way he used to drive that car, came up every time I saw Nico in the Merc. Just total control, never really looked quick, although he did look quick, but he never looked blindingly quick in the way, even in the way that Lewis Hamilton did. Watching up at Casino Square as I was on Saturday, watching them from behind as they go into the right-hander down the hill and on the entry into Massenet, Nico just perfectly positioned every lap, and his judgment as he went into the apex for the right-hander down the hill for the right rear was consistently there with Vettel and Pastor Maldonado, just within a couple of centimetres every lap. Lewis, interestingly there, was leaving much more margin than I've ever seen Lewis leave. And I don't know why that was. I don't suppose Lewis even knows. He feels he's driving as quickly as he possibly can. The only thing that one could see with the naked eye, briefly, for a millisecond as they disappeared down the hill, was that it looked to me as if Lewis is running more or less roll stiffness at the rear on the Merc than Nico Rosberg, and that's highly possible. We see quite a lot of difference in setup, and Lewis, I think, does historically like a relatively soft car, and around Monaco it would make sense in terms of traction, but certainly on the high-speed stuff, it didn't look as effective as Nico's car, and Nico maximising what he was doing, just stunning to watch in every dimension. Ferrari, a thought about Ferrari, maybe they are at their best on very smooth surfaces, and Monaco therefore was always going to be a problem for them. Let's see how they get on in Canada. Not as smooth as Barcelona, but it will be a step forward, one suspects, for Ferrari. In other notes, lots of chat about Williams having secured a Mercedes deal. That's presumably a Toto Wolff deal. He's still got shares in Williams, as we know. That wouldn't be the only reason for that. I suspect it would be, let's have the Mercedes factory team on which we can focus, and then we'll have two other teams that we supply engines to, Force India and Williams. A nice package for Mercedes if they can pull that off. And that means, I think, also that Toro Rosso may relinquish its Ferrari deal and go to the Renault deal that Williams would then vacate. So we may see Toro Rosso going to Renault next year, and then, of course, being under one roof with Red Bull in terms of engine supply. Talk about James Calado, who's not having a great season in GP2 so far, joining Sahara Force India as a possible third driver, indeed as a young driver under contract. That would be good for James. He needs that sort of confidence lift. ART, amazingly this year in GP2, well off the pace. Not quite sure why that is. One of the most enjoyable aspects, I thought, of Monaco was the win on Sunday by Stefano Coletti. This was in the GP2 race, the second GP2 race, what they call the sprint race, because you just race, you don't make a pit stop to change tyres. And Stefano started that race from sixth position, having done pretty well from mid-grid in the first race. Now, in case you don't know about Stefano Coletti, he's a Monegasque. And there are not many of them in the world, but he grew up in Monte Carlo. He's a genuine Monaco resident, unlike many of those who buy their residency. Stefano grew up there, he went to school there, he knows that place like you and I know home. And there he was, P3 on the grid, and he went on to win in front of his home crowd, in front of his mates, in front of his family. An amazing, I think, very significant motor racing event. The first Monegasque actually to win a major international race at Monaco since Louis Chiron. And this is what he had to say when we spoke to him on the Tuesday after his memorable win.
Stefano, nice to talk to you so soon after that amazing day for you. I guess the more you think about it, the more you pinch yourself to see if it really happened. For you to win in your hometown where you were born and raised, and to win in front of your family and your friends, tell me what that felt like.
It was incredible. I mean, since I'm a little kid, I've been always seeing people winning in Monaco and driving fast in my streets. And one day I said I want to do the same thing. And in the end, I managed to start karting, and then I started racing cars. And finally, I did my first race in Monaco 4 years ago, and I never succeeded to be on the podium. And this year, after 3 years of GP2 winning in my hometown it's just amazing. It's just something that you cannot describe.
How did you feel before the start of that race too? You knew you had a good chance to win that one, but nonetheless, there was another guy on the pole. There was going to be some overtaking. A million things can always go wrong in GP2. What was your mindset as you went to the grid there?
Well, first thing was I have to do a good start, because I had to pass at least one car at the start. Because if I didn't pass one car at the start, in Monaco it would have been difficult to arrive first. So I concentrated really hard on the start, and I managed to have a good start. So I pulled out in the first corner in the second place, and then once I was behind the guy who was first, I said to myself, I can't stay second here. So I tried a few times, and then on the second or third lap, I don't remember now, and I passed him at the braking of the chicane.
Yeah, I think it was the second lap. And
Yeah.
and even then, it's not easy, is it? Because the guy has the option to shut the gate. You know that you're kind of in a 50-50 situation on that corner. As we saw in the Formula One race, it's so easy to not give space there. But I guess, to Adrian's credit, he did.
But he didn't. I don't think he expected it, because when I exited the tunnel, I was very far away, and I didn't expect myself to pass at that point. But I braked on my normal spot, and then suddenly I realized that he braked really early. So either I was going on the left, or I was probably going to hit him. So I just decided to move on the left, and he gave me a right amount of room, which was really fair from him, and everything went well in the corner.
And how was the rest of the race for you? Because it looked like you would pull away and then you would back off a little bit. It looked like it was a time management race as ever.
Yeah, it was. We were managing the tires because we know my tires were from the first stint of race one, my rear tires. So they were a little bit old. So I decided to, once I was in the lead, to try and do the fastest lap. So I did some cool down laps and some fast laps to try to get the 2 points from fastest lap, which I did. So and after I got my fastest lap, I was just controlling quite Forbes behind me and pushing only when I had to push.
And the last couple of laps, how was your mind? How was your focus? How was your concentration?
I don't think you can talk about the last couple of laps. I think you can talk about the whole race. I mean, it was probably the longest race in my life. I never saw laps going down so slow in a race. I was counting each lap, and I was like, come on, one more. It was really, really hard, really tough.
Did you make any mistakes in your own mind? What sort of job did you do as a race driver in those last few laps?
I just kept on focusing on the drive and tried not to do any mistakes. And I was just focusing on braking early in the places where it could have been dangerous to overbrake, which is turn one and the corner going into Mirabeau, where you have almost no exit. So if you just brake too late, you just crash in the wall. So I was being very careful there, and then the rest of the lap I was just controlling and trying to stay away from the walls. And
the slowdown lap?
I did a big slowdown lap at one point to do the fastest lap, and everyone told me, we thought you had problems. We thought we had problems on the tires or on the car, because I went from driving to 123s to drive almost 128. But it was just completely in control. And then the next lap I just did a 22.8, which was the best lap, so I got the 2 points there.
Yeah, no, what I meant was after the checkered flag, the lap.
Oh, okay.
The in lap.
You meant that lap.
Yeah. Well, I was interested in what you just said there, but yeah, let's talk about the in lap.
The in lap was just, I mean, I knew a lot of people around the track.
Well, that was going to be my next question, so let's leave that to the next question. Let's just talk about that lap and the flag marshals and the feeling.
I did it as slow as I could. I think it was the slowest in lap in my life, because I was trying to just enjoy all the last seconds I had on that track, because I don't know when I'm going to drive there again, you know? I mean, after GP2, the next step is Formula 1, but what if I don't make it? If I don't make it, what am I going to do? I'm probably never going to drive on this track anymore. So it was good for me to win this weekend, because in the end, I don't know if I'm going to race again there, you know? So.
And let's talk about who was at that race and who you knew was around the circuit where they lived. I mean, how many people do you know in Monte Carlo? Can you put a number to it?
We pretty much know all of us. I mean, it's a small town, so we know a lot of people. So when I was driving at the track, everyone was just jumping around the track, and I was just waving at everyone like, hey, hey, hey. I did a few burnouts on the way back to the pits. And it was an incredible feeling.
What about your family and those closest to you? I saw Alexandra, your sister, was right in front of the podium. She's a great supporter of you, right? She
is, and all my family. My mom was actually crying down the podium, and I think my dad had some tears in his eyes, even if he would never admit it. He was very emotional as well. I mean, everyone. It's a big thing to win in Monaco when you're already a driver from any country, but I think when you're a real Monegasque winning in Monaco, it's really special.
And I don't think there was a driver called Lionel Nogues. I don't think he actually won an international single-seater race. Certainly not at Monaco, in my memory.
I think the last one that won was in 1931, and that was in the Formula One, but that was
Louis Chiron.
long time.
Yeah, that would have been Louis Chiron, right?
Yeah.
Who then became the official starter of the Monaco Grand Prix for many years.
Yeah.
Wow, what an achievement! And tell me a little bit about Stefano Coletti, because I suppose it's very easy for the British and the GP2 lot, and just generally to say, yet another guy who's comes from a rich part of the world, and there he is in GP2, and he's been around a long time. But your pedigree is good. You've won in karting at the highest level. You've beat some really good guys. You've had a tough Formula BMW, Formula 3 rise, but you've done well. And this year, 3 wins, 1 pole, leading the GP2 Championship. You look like a driver who's, I mean, you're saying you may not make Formula 1. How are you thinking in your head right now? Because it looks like a guy that you deserve to at least be given an opportunity in Formula 1.
Well, I'm concentrating on my season right now and trying to win as much as I can and get as many points as I can and win the championship, because that's what matters the most now. Once I've done the job, we'll see what happens. You know, it's not easy to get in Formula 1, but if you put all the chances together, I think you have a big chance to go in it. And as you said, we've won at the highest level in karting. I won in front of big guys as well that are now in Formula 1. And I had a tough year in BMW, tough years in Formula 3, but I still won races, and we were still always like trying to fight for the front. So, I mean, I was never able to be honestly in a team that was supporting me 100% like the team is supporting me this year. I mean, they follow me like completely blindly, and they really listen to what I have to say and what I want. So when you have a support like that from a team, it makes the whole difference. I think part of the secret why we're quick this year is because there is a really, really good working group. So we all work together, and it all ends up by going well.
How did the Rapax deal come about? How did you end up there?
Well, last year we had a very tough year with my previous team. So at one point we decided to stop during the season. And it wasn't by choice that we went to Rapax. It's just that it was the only team free at the moment. So we did the last 2 races with them. And they were not great. I mean, we had better results than the team before, but it wasn't like, okay, we get in the car and we win immediately and the team is great. It's just we had good races, 2 good races, but I felt like the team and the technical stuff was really good. So I decided to give it a shot at the tests, and I saw that everyone was working well and everyone was really supportive and everyone wanted to win. So in the end, we decided to sign there.
Stefano, I have to confess that you first came to my notice when you, relatively late, when you were very quick in the wet or semi-wet in Hungary in GP2. Yeah. Very good drive. I mean, that was more than just a guy doing well in a good car. That was you showing that you got something quite special in terms of talent. What's the wet been like for you over your career?
Well, it's honestly, in my first 2 years of karting, I think when I was a kid, I did probably out of 30, 40 races, I probably did 38 races in the wet.
Wow.
It was every weekend was raining, every weekend. So I practiced a lot on the wet, and I always find it easy to drive on the wet. It comes naturally. So, I mean, when you don't have to think about it and you just drive and you just feel it, it comes. Everything comes easier. And I've always, in any car I've been driving, I've always been on the front in the wet, always. So.
And you've also had 2 big accidents at Spa. That's really weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got something in common with Nigel Mansell. You've broken a vertebra twice, I think, or at least cracked a vertebra twice, which Nigel did as well. And in a way, I guess that's something that's a challenge that you have to get over, and it put you out of racing for quite a long time, right?
Yeah, I had my first crash. It was my first race in GP, my second race in GP2, because we had Durango that called us in 2009 when I was doing a good season in Formula 3, and they said, you want to do the last 2 races because we have a free seat? And I was like, why not, let's do it. And when I arrived in Spa, I was actually starting last from the pits because I had a clutch problem at the start. And 2 laps to go, I was actually on position, I was 8th. So I was going to start on pole on the next day, and then second race in GP2, which was not bad, starting last. And I arrived in Eau Rouge, and my steering column broke. Which wasn't a good thing. And I hit the wall straight front at 264 kilometers per hour. So I broke a lower back vertebra, I broke my sternum, I broke my coccyx. I don't know how you say it in English.
Yeah, we say coccyx, yeah.
My coccyx, and I had bruises everywhere. So it put me out of racing for a while. I mean, for 2-3 months. And then I had another crash again in 2011 in Spa. When it was raining really, really hard, and the driver in front of me had an engine problem and didn't pull out the way. So we couldn't see anything, and just arrived really, really fast, and I hit him, and I flew in the air, and when I landed, I broke 3 vertebrae. 3 vertebrae in one go, so it wasn't easy. I still have problems with my back. I mean, it still hurts sometimes, but it's going to get better, I hope.
Well, I hope Richie Stanaway is listening to this interview, because he had a similar thing, and he's been out of racing. Well, he's back now in Porsche Super Cup, but he was out for all of last year. Very similar sounding accident, that second one. Stefano, tell me about how hard you have to work to raise sponsorship and money. It's not just money falling out of the sky from your point of view, right? You work hard, and you've got a great business going there in Monaco.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. I mean, it's not that easy to find money nowadays. Even now that I'm leading the championship and that I have a comfortable lead in all those podiums, I'm still trying to find sponsors because I still need to cover up the budget, and it's not easy. You know, everyone's struggling right now, and I'm lucky that I have my father, who has a really good business, and he can help me, and he has clients as well that can help me. So I put on a lot of things all together. But it's really hard. It's a full-time job. I mean, it's not. People might think it's easy to find sponsors, but it's really not. You have to work on it. Most of the time, you spend hours and hours and hours on some people, and in the end, they don't give you anything. So it's pretty hard, but it's part of the job.
Stefano, where are you speaking to us from?
From a restaurant.
Yeah, but tell us about it. Where are you? Who's that?
In Menton. In Menton. It's close to Monaco. It's my best friend's restaurant. I think it's called Le Galion. So if anyone comes here, you have to come in here. It's really good.
And I remember a couple of years ago at Monaco, you had a black bow tie on your race suit, sort of.
Yeah, it was 2011.
Yeah, so in preparation for eventually a gala night, what was it like on Sunday night? What did you do?
No, I didn't wear it at the gala.
No, I know, but what did you do this time?
No, I went to the gala, and I was with the drivers. Usually I always go there. I've been going there since I'm like 14, 15 years old, because I'm Monegasque driver. They invite me all the time. And but this year was really special, because when they put on the video, you know, they make a footage of all the highlights of the Formula One weekend, and they put all the winners. And when I was on the screen, I think I had probably more standing ovation than Rosberg that won the Formula One race.
Wow.
Everyone was shouting, everyone was raising their towels, you know, their napkins in the air, and it was just unbelievable. And they even called us on the podium. You know, there was like where they do the speech. Normally they only call the F1 drivers, but this year they called all the winners. And there as well, everyone stood up for me, and everyone was cheering up, and it's a very great feeling. When I actually was shaking when I got up there.
Ah, Stefano, that's brilliant. Well, I was lucky enough to be able to interview you on the podium after the race, and you were shaking slightly then as well from the emotion, and I'm not surprised. I just cannot imagine what that must have felt like. Thanks so much for spending some time with us, and you got a bit of a break now, but best of luck. A lot of British fans will be able to see you at Silverstone. One question, sorry, I forgot to ask. Why did you not qualify that well at Monaco?
We were not ready for that. I mean, we thought we did the setup before we left from the box, but we didn't expect the super soft tires to react the way they reacted, and I caused a lot of graining on the rear tires, which I did after 2 laps. So, you know, Monaco, the lap time improves lap after lap because the track gets better all the time, and you also get more experience from driving. And after 2 laps, my rear tires were completely gone. Right. So there's nothing I could do. I was actually really, really fast in the first 2 laps because I had pole immediately, and then I couldn't improve my lap time, and everyone started to improve. So I ended up P7 of my group.
Well, you did a great job in that first race to go from mid-grid right up to 6th. I think you finished.
And I was in the crash in turn 1 as well.
Wow.
So the whole weekend was like, you know, you start 14th on your home circuit, then first corner you're in the crash. You don't expect that you're going to be the one scoring the most points at the end of the weekend.
Brilliant stuff. Well, we look forward to seeing you at Silverstone, and probably it'll be wet, so hopefully you'll have a good weekend there.
We should. Last year I qualified 4th on the wet there, so. But then got disqualified because I had no more fuel in my tank.
Well, enjoy now, and very best of luck. Thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Stefano Coletti, believe me, this guy just doesn't have money falling out of the sky. He works very, very hard, and he didn't go into too many details. As what I understand it, his father is a major property developer in Monaco, but they don't just spend the family money. What they do is encourage all these different clients that want to invest in property in Monaco to take part in the motor racing program, and they get side benefits, and they do put together genuine sponsorship packages. Yes, of course, as he says, they have a bit of leverage, but they're using it well. And I just hope Stefano Coletti doesn't get lost in amongst all the other very talented drivers we see coming up who people just take for granted. This guy's doing the job at the moment. Still a long way to go, but he's doing an excellent job right now with 3 wins and a pole behind him. Look out for him at the British Grand Prix. Looking forward to seeing him there in the GP2 race. Sergio Perez very much in the news after Monaco. Kimi was not happy with him. Fernando kind of accepted him. Jenson Button was okay with him as well, sort of complimentary, but equally, I think, not particularly happy in the early stages of the race. The question is, what do they expect? Did they really expect a very neat and tidy driver who was going to do exactly what he was told and be as quick as he is? Well, if they did, I don't know why they thought Sergio Perez was that sort of driver. He isn't that sort of driver. He never has been. And a circuit like Monaco, he's always going to be, as Rob Wilson says, a Mexican gunslinger. And he did that. He was the Mexican gunslinger. Of course, he went too far. And he went certainly too far, I think, with Kimi and probably with Fernando. But the difference, I thought, there between Fernando and Kimi, an interesting one, is that Fernando ultimately let him go and sort of went through the middle of the chicane because he didn't want to get hit, whereas Kimi got hit. Both of them, I mean, Fernando then had to give position back, which I thought was ridiculous. But nonetheless, different approach to this Mexican gunslinger coming up in your mirrors, and both of them reading him slightly differently. Doesn't in any way say that what he was doing should be condoned, but having said that, it is what it is. And Jenson Button knows now how Sergio Perez drives. Watching him actually through Casino Square, the guy is blindingly fast. He was very, very good through there, as indeed was Jenson, funnily enough. I thought he was surprisingly quick in that very, very fast section of road. If there was a difference, it was that Jenson nonetheless has this incredible feel for keeping the car absolutely minimal in terms of how much he loses the slip angle at the rear. Sergio Perez, no problems at all with any sort of oversteer, and just fabulous to watch, and just a tad quicker, certainly in the places where we were watching. So Sergio, keep it up, I think, is probably the best way to go. Canada, a lot less things to hit, and probably it'll all go back to normal then. This was just Monte Carlo. There was a race at the weekend, an Indy Lights race, which if you were in America, probably you would have seen by now. But if you weren't paying attention, it was the Indy 500 as well, and we should mention that in a second. But if you weren't paying attention, the Indy Lights race also run on the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the full 2.5 mile oval. Not a large field at all. But at the front, as ever in motor racing, when there are small fields, the racing incredibly close and competitive. We've already spoken to one of the competitors there, Jack Hawksworth. He didn't have a good weekend. He hit the wall in the race after qualifying about 4th or 5th. But the race, as it developed, was between, well, it seemed to be between 3 cars. Let's have a look at this. This is about 3 or 4 laps from the end of the race.
They make their way down the main straightaway. Front 2 starting to check out just a bit. Carlos Munoz with Sage Karam in pursuit. 3 laps remaining in the Firestone Freedom 100, Michael.
Lap after lap after lap. Carlos Munoz stays low. Sage Karam looks high. That will not be a way to get around Carlos Munoz, as he does a fantastic job defending that position. Gabby Chavez just about 2 car lengths off, as Peter Dempsey, as he tried to get around Chavez last lap, has fallen back about 4 car lengths as they make their way to 3, and Jerry Baker.
Well, as you mentioned, Mark, it is Karam and Munoz. Munoz out front. They separated themselves momentarily. All of a sudden, Chavez says, don't go too far away. He's making it a 3-way battle.
Munoz, Karam, Chavez, as Jerry Baker says, as they make their way down the main straightaway. The front 2 start to pull away a little bit from Chavez. They have about a 2 car length advantage as they reach the apex of turn 1. Down the main straightaway they come. Carlos Munoz, Sage Karam, Gabby Chavez. Chavez steps to the high side. White flag is out. 1 more lap to go as their fans on their feet now, appreciating the talents of these outstanding young drivers. The future of the ISOT IndyCar Series on display Final lap sets up in front of Michael Young.
And Gabby Chavez starts to look on the inside of Sage Karam. Karam goes high one more time on Carlos Munoz. Carlos holds that position. 1, 2, 3, throw a blanket on them, and turn number 4 with Jerry Baker.
They are 2 wide, now they are 3 wide, coming into turn number 3. Chavez outside, inside Munoz, Dempsey caught in the middle. Mark, they're going into turn 4, 3 wide.
Sage Karam has his hands full. The dirty air is disrupting the race car. 3 wide, throw a blanket over him as they head down the main straightaway. They may go 4 wide to the start-finish line. Here comes the move, Dempsey to the outside. Who wins it? Peter Dempsey! Peter Dempsey has won the Firestone Freedom 100, went to the high side and made a spectacular pass just 10 yards from the start-finish line, getting Brian Bellardi to victory lane at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
So that's Peter Dempsey, an Irish driver, young Irish driver, from nowhere, winning a stunningly competitive race by the smallest of conceivable margins. I spoke to him a few days later, and this is what he had to say.
Peter, great to talk to you. First of all, just tell us where you are right now.
Believe it or not, I just drove back from Indianapolis this morning. We were at the banquet last night, so I'm back at my home base in just north Chicago, Illinois.
So tell me, what was it like at the banquet? What was everybody saying about your win?
It was incredible. You know, just obviously the Indianapolis 500 is the biggest race in the world, and to get the reception that I got last night was unbelievable. Just people were saying what an amazing finish and asking if I timed it intentionally or was it a bit of luck on my side. So, you know, it was a great night, and you know, people just congratulating me all night. It was brilliant.
Well, what are the answers to those 2 questions?
A bit of both. You know, I was hanging in there all race, just trying to stay with the leaders as much as I could, and you know, definitely had a bit of luck to get across the line. But my spotter, to be fair, Stefan Wilson was in my ear, and he said, "We're going to have a shot at it. They're going to go 3 wide, and you'll get the drafts coming to the line." So, fortunately, he was right, and we timed it perfect.
And what? Speaking to an ignoramus here, do you get more of a draft when they're 3 abreast than if they'd say 2 abreast?
Yeah, definitely. You know, 3 cars spread across the track like that, just punching a huge hole in the air, and I'd never felt a car suck up like the way it did coming to the down to the start-finish line, and you know, it was perfect. But yeah, no, definitely 3 wide, a huge hole, and I was very thankful for that.
And can you quantify in revs or speed what you gained from that?
Oh, well, normally coming down the front straight, you might pull like 187, 188 on your own just before you get to start-finish line. And I've crossed the line, I think, doing 193. So you're looking probably about 5 or 6 miles an hour. So I was certainly wasn't complaining about it, that's for sure.
And from how far back did you start to feel that toe?
It was really just coming out of turn 4. I came into turns 3 and 4, and they were like 3 wide. And I was kind of hanging back, expecting them to make contact and maybe have a crash. And when I got out of turn 3 and into the final corner, I says, right, I better have a go and at least get a podium finish for my team, Bellardi Auto Racing. And then just came out in the front straight. It was probably maybe 2 to 3 car lengths back coming off turn 4, and then it just started getting closer and closer. So it was brilliant.
There's another element, of course, which is total trust that those 3 guys aren't going to in any way deviate offline, and there's going to be enough room anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. With oval racing, you have to have huge amount of respect for your competitors, and I really feel that the Firestone Indy Lights series proved that last Friday, that, you know, they gave me enough room coming down to the start-finish line. They gave each other a lot of respect, and, you know, we didn't want to wreck any cars, so that was great.
And tell me what that lap is like on your own, first of all, in one of those cars, in terms of what you do for the 4 corners.
It's quite tricky. On your own, it's not too difficult, to be fair, but you know, it's all about trying to get, you know, the timing right with your turn-in points, you know, trying to keep the car from scrubbing off as little amount of speed as possible, because it's like a big bowl at the end of the day, and the quicker you can go around it, you know, the more speed you're going to carry through the whole lap. So it's all about being very light on the steering wheel, getting to the right turn-in points, and, you know, having the right gear selection, having a good car underneath you. But it's a different story when you're in a race situation on the last lap, dicing with 3 other cars.
And is it flat, or all 4 corners flat?
On your own, it's pretty easy flat on your own in an Indy Lights car, but then in a race situation, it's very difficult because you got such low downforce on the front of the car when you're behind other competitors. So it's very tricky, and you got to be very aware of where you catch the aero, because if you're put yourself in the wrong position, you can get a real bad snap oversteer. So it's not easy, certainly not an easy race. You got to be very focused and be patient.
Peter, you've been in the States for a while now. Tell us a little bit about your career, the decision to leave Europe, to go to America, and the road to Indy.
Yeah, I mean, I came across to the United States in 2008. I'd raced a lot in British Formula Ford, and my next step was really like to try to get up to British Formula 3 or to do the Formula Renault Championship back then, but just never really had the opportunity or the budget to do it. So, fortunately, 2008, I came over to do the first race in Star Mazda with Anderson Racing, and I only had 10,000 euros at the time, and somehow I've kept the ball rolling. I finished third in the Star Mazda Championship 2008 and second in 2009. And then I've been kind of ducking and diving in and out of Indy Lights for the last 2 years. But now I have this great opportunity with Bilardi Auto Racing that they've put me in the car for the full season, and it's the biggest opportunity I've got over here in the US.
And this win won't have hurt you at all in terms of this year, consolidating this year, and indeed what you might or might not be doing in 2014.
Yeah, it was a massive win. First of all, for myself to get my first Indy Lights win, and obviously to do it at Indianapolis Motor Speedway was amazing. I've been in the Mazda road to Indy for the last few years, and they've brought up some hugely talented drivers over the past season or two into the Firestone Indy Lights series, and just to get there and get it done, and so it was a brilliant weekend.
And it was a good weekend for Indy Lights in another way, in how well Carlos Munoz did in the race itself, in the 500. Unbelievable performance.
Yeah, it certainly was. Incredible what he done. All month, I always sit in the home here watching live time, and then from the first practice out early May, he was right there on pace. But then to run as consistent as he did in the race and keep out of trouble, and it was a brilliant drive from him. And for me, it was great to get one over on him in the Indy Lights race, and then go on to see him do so well in the IndyCar race, because it just shows the level of talent that's in the Indy Lights series right now.
Yeah, well, best of luck with that, Peter. I got to finish by asking about your presumably friendship with Derek Daly. You seem to speak exactly the same form of, I think it's English we call it, do we, or not?
Irish English.
Yeah, as if Connor Daly pretends to be an American now, but he's Irish as well.
Yeah, he does a pretty good Irish accent, and I spend a lot of time with Connor. I actually worked with him in 2010 when he won the Star Mazda Championship, doing all the coaching and data for him. So, him and Derek have been huge supporters of mine since I came over here, and definitely have a good bit of fun together.
Connor too did a good job in the 500, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I felt for him it was just important to finish, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. He did a good job. But Peter, the spotlight's on you. Congratulations again. That's the trophy in the background, I guess, is it?
Oh, it's one of them. Yeah, no, it was a great weekend, and I got a trophy and a flag up there, and I don't think I won't be coming down for a while.
Well, best of luck for the rest of the year, and thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you.
Another driver from Indy Lights, whose name is in Lights, Carlos Munoz, the Colombian. We mentioned him on this show a few weeks ago from his Indy Lights performance, but he was given an Andretti drive in the Indy 500 proper. He started the race as a rookie. He qualified second, and he finished second. Congratulations to him. What an amazing performance from Carlos Munoz. Great to see Tony Kanaan finally win the Indy 500. Connor Daly did well too, started right from the back, rushing around the world. Flagged off in qualifying, started from the back of the grid, but finished in the top 20 or just outside the top 20, did a very good job. So congratulations to Connor too. Back at Monaco, a World Series by Renault win for Nico Müller. We've also been talking about him. He's one of Rob Wilson's pupils, if that's the right word. He rang Rob after qualifying to say, wow, I was quickest in my division. It was split into two. And then he won the race. He's back at Bruntingthorpe next week. So congratulations to Nico Müller and, of course, to Rob Wilson and the team up there. Sam Bird won the GP2 feature race. Good win for Sam. He made up for his GP2 debacle of 2 years ago when he was driving for iSport, when he stalled on the grid, when he was on the pole. He made up for that by winning the World Series race last year, but then he capitalized on it by winning the GP2 race for Russian time. That used to be iSport. I bumped into two of the iSport directors, Gav and Richard, on Saturday actually. They were in the back of a Comtech World Series truck. I said, what are you guys doing here? How did you feel after after Sam won that race. They said, oh, well, you know, most of the guys there are our guys, and we enjoyed it. Good for Sam. And there they were working for Comtech. Very, well, it wasn't sad. I mean, they're doing what they enjoy. But I just thought, the ironies of life, the ironies of motorsport. Speaking of that, David Valsecchi was in, of course, the Lotus F1 engineers area when the GP2 race was on. And below them, just pure chance, was the team of Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, the British driver, who eventually finished second on Sunday. He'd started from the back of the grid, or very near the back of the grid. The car wasn't great, but he was starting to pick up some pace. And towards the end, well, about 15 laps to go, he was running 9th, and that's a big deal in a GP2 race, because if you can finish 8th, it means you're on the pole for the Sunday race. And Davide was listening to the young Italian engineer talking to Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, and he was saying in broken English, go, 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 you've got to try to get 8th place, go, 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 go. And David had tapped him on the shoulder and said, don't put him under pressure. Tell him to stay calm, because the guy in 8th place is on super softs. Adrian's on softs. All he's got to do is keep it on the island, just apply pressure, and 2 or 3 laps from the end, he will get him. Wait and see. So the engineer got back on the radio and said, okay, calm it. Wait. Just take your time. You can do it. And it's exactly what happened. Quaife-Hobbs finished 8th, was on the pole, and finished a very good second after a diabolical initial qualifying session. So it just shows little details like that, how they can change a weekend overnight. David Valsecchi, to me, one of the most underrated drivers, certainly not being used at the moment. And although I'm a Romain Grosjean fan, don't get me wrong, I would love to see David Valsecchi do a couple of races for Lotus F1. I know he's doing the upcoming test at Silverstone, which I think is after the German Grand Prix this year, so all the best to him for that. Good to see Sergio Rinland there. He was working with that Quaife-Hobbs team as well, and there was a lot of discussion. I was talking to Heikki Kovalainen and Alfonso Dorleans of Racing Engineering about golf, as you would, and the upshot was that Ian Poulter, the golfer, is going to be offered a GP2 test drive in Abu Dhabi. I'm not sure if Ian Poulter knows about this, but it'll be worth watching. Apparently he's a massive fan of motor racing. Going straight into GP2, possibly a jump, I don't know. Be like me trying to play the 16th at Augusta, I would think, without having practiced for 5.5 years. Right, I loved the Kimi Raikkonen helmet. I love what he's doing for the James Hunt Foundation. For those who don't know what that is, it's a foundation basically set up by James's 2 sons, Tom and Freddie. And the idea is to register the merchandise that they can around James and to commercialize it, and for that money to go into the James Hunt Foundation, which will then donate that money to a charity that the 2 sons believe James would have enjoyed. And that's from year to year, from month to month, from week to week, whatever it is in terms of the money income. And brilliant, I think, to see Kimi Raikkonen adopting that and putting it on his crash hat for the Monaco Grand Prix. But there was a glitch, because after Thursday, the team and Kimi were told that they had to take it off the helmet because it was in lettering that could be read from the onboard camera, and also gave subliminal promotion to an upcoming movie, the movie Rush. And there was a lot of discussion about that. I'm very pleased to see that ultimately it was resolved and the James Hunt logo and foundation was still visible on the Kimi onboard. So a great final result, I think. I'd just like to close by mentioning Weekend of a Champion. Of course, that was the film made by Roman Polanski in 1971 around the Monaco Grand Prix, featuring Jackie Stewart. And guess what? Jackie just happened to win the race that weekend. But there's lots more to a win than a driver taking a checkered flag, and we see it graphically in this beautifully made film. Jackie in his suite in the Hotel de Paris, talking to Helen about his hunger levels, why he's not eating as much as he should, cutting himself shaving, moaning about the rain. Interesting to see Jackie back in 71. He was a very funny, very witty, very athletic, very brilliant racing driver, and all that comes through. We know Jackie today, and he hasn't changed that much, but just to see him as this live athlete is, well, stunning. Beautifully shot film. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to be released, when it's going to be released. I know there was another premiere in Paris this week in which Jean-Pierre Beltoise and his wife Jacqueline, who of course is Francois Sever's sister, were present, as well as Romain and Jackie Stewart. Mark Stewart, Jackie's son, has done a brilliant job with the with the editing of the film and the remastering of the film, and with an addition at the end shot in the Hotel de Paris. If you get a chance, don't miss it. If you are going to miss it, here's a few clips you may enjoy. In the meantime, after that, see you next week.
You're clipping close on here again, feeding it out, very fast section of the course, right out here. Still in third gear here, third gear corner, Sandoval. You're going up the hill, you've engaged fourth gear about now. This is in fact your line, so you're coming round on this line. The car's in third gear and you're drifting out this way. Now you see this rise here, when the car goes over this rise, you slide all the way down this hill in third gear, flat in third gear, very fast down here, underneath the bridge, still in third gear. Now the braking distance is in this manhole cover. There's a manhole cover there, you brake there, you change into second gear if you're on light fuel tanks for this corner. Again, you've got to be very careful you don't touch the curb. If you touch the curb, you burst a wheel or you puncture a tyre. You come down here, you're in second gear, you straight line this, you come straight in here, you pass this truck, you change down into first gear, you're down in here on the right hand side with this rock face, and then again you clip over here. Not too difficult here, but you're in full lock. You've got your arms crossed over like that, you come out on that sign there, you come in and you change into second gear here, not going right over to the left-hand side of the road. You're going towards the tunnel, you engage fourth gear just about now. Now you're going into the tunnel. Bright sunshine, or whatever the hell it is, then you're into the darkness of the tunnel. Dramatic change of light, you know? Tremendous noise in here, even we can hear the difference. He was a bellboy, and apparently he finally got a chance to drive the car, and he became a racing driver.
He's the flagman, isn't he?
He starts the race. How the hell he's never been killed, I'll never know.
Yeah,
they took him off the job for 2 years because he was such a disaster. Because he kept, you know, he would go out in the middle of the track and he keeps going like this. You know, no, and he's got the flag like this. And you know before he drops it, you know, because he's such an age now, you know, he's 72, that you see his knees go before he drops the flag, you know, because he can't bring the flag down just with his arms. So he gets up on his tiptoes and his knees bend and everybody leave, you know, because then they know he's committed, he's got to come down. And they took him off the job last year, which was a pity because he was nice coffee.
You want some coffee?
Yeah, I mean, he's part of Monte Carlo.